The Hoop Heads Podcast is brought to you by Head Start Basketball.
Building those relationships is the number one thing of what we want to do, because without those relationships, kids don't play hard. If they don't trust you, if they're not confident in you, if they don't like you, they're not going to play hard for you. Why would they?
Colin Doss just completed his first season as the head boys basketball coach and assistant athletic director at Murray High School in Kentucky, where he led the Tigers to a 21-8 record and was named the 2026 KABC Region 1 Coach of the Year. Doss guided the program to a 2026 2A Sectional Championship, Murray High School's first 2A title in school history, and led the largest turnaround by a first-year head coach in the state of Kentucky as the team improved from 9-19 in 2024-25. Colin previously served as the head men's basketball coach at John Melvin College in the 2024-25 season, after being hired as the youngest head coach in college basketball at 23 years old. At John Melvin, Doss was named the 2025 New South Atlantic Conference Coach of the Year and was a USCAA Division II National Coach of the Year nominee. Doss spent 2 seasons as the men's basketball assistant coach for NAIA Brescia University and has coached for PhD Hoops since 2023. Give with Hoops is the first platform turning basketball analytics into fundraising impact. Every stat tells a story, and now every story drives sponsorship, engagement, and team growth. Programs nationwide are transforming basketball stats into funding power. Learn to use performance data to attract sponsors, engage fans, and raise more with every play. Give with Hoops will help you raise 3 times more money for your program as their stat-based pledges consistently outperform traditional fundraisers. Visit givewithhoops.com/hoop-heads-podcast to learn more and take your fundraising to the next level. Give with Hoops.
Hi, this is David Thorpe from TrueHoop.com and the Pro Training Center, and you're listening to the Hoop Heads Podcast.
Are you or an athlete you know planning to go D3? Check out the D3 recruiting playbook from D3 Direct. Their playbook gives you a clear step-by-step roadmap to the recruiting process, what coaches value, key milestones from early high school through application season, and how to build a targeted list of schools that fit your needs. The playbook demystifies researching D3 programs and how to stand out without chasing every camp or showcase. The modules cover things like writing emails to coaches, building an effective highlight tape, using social media well, planning camps and visits, and navigating application strategy. You'll get templates, checklists, and an outreach plan to communicate confidently, learn how to compare financial packages, and avoid common missteps. By the end, you'll have a prioritized school list and a decision framework you can use to land your best fit opportunity. Click on the link in the show notes to get your D3 recruiting playbook from D3 Direct. Grab your notebook before you listen to this episode with Colin Doss, head boys basketball coach and assistant athletic director at Murray High School in the state of Kentucky. Hello and welcome to the Hoop Heads Podcast. It's Mike Klinzinger here without my co-host Jason Sunkel tonight, but I am pleased to welcome in Colin Doss, head boys basketball coach at Murray High School and assistant athletic director in the state of Kentucky. Colin, welcome to the Hoop Heads Pod.
I appreciate it, Mike. It's been a long time being able to listen to this show, so it's an honor being on the show tonight.
Well, thrilled to have on a longtime listener, and we have kind of an unusual situation here, Colin, that it's not often that we actually meet in person with someone who's on the podcast before they're on the podcast. I've had lots of people that I've had on and then bumped into them or met them or seen them in their city, but it's rare that it happens in reverse order. So Colin and I got to meet each other in person at the Final Four this weekend in Indianapolis. And now here we are doing a podcast just a couple of days after meeting in person for the first time. So kind of a unique situation.
It's even better of how we met in person. It wasn't, I didn't come up to you or you didn't come up to me. You somehow happened to sit in front of me at the D2 National Championship game and just miraculously happened. So
sometimes things are meant to be. So hopefully that means we are headed for one of the all-time best Hoop Heads podcasts here. So we're going to give it our best shot. We're going to give it our best shot. So Colin, let's start out by going back in time to when you were a kid. Tell me a little bit about your first experiences with the game of basketball. What do you remember? What made you fall in love with it?
Yeah, so when you grow up where I come from in the great state of Kentucky, I grew up in the western part of Kentucky. So when you live in western Kentucky, you better play basketball. And if you don't, you got something seriously wrong with you. I look at it as like a little Indiana, but Kentucky is a hoop state, man. So growing up, I grew up with a ball in my hands. My family, all of my family played basketball, when they were kids or one of them went and played in college. It's just one of them things that I've always been a part of, and I was fortunate enough to be pretty decent at it as I got older.
So when you think about the process for you getting better and improving as a player, what were some of the things that you did in the game to make yourself a better player when you're younger? And you could take younger into whatever age you want. Just how'd you get to become a good player?
Yeah, so I grew up, I was always the tallest kid. So I was always the one stuck down in the post when I was a little kid. And I'm 6'5" now. I was 6'5" in high school. So, in my opinion, looking back at it, I probably didn't get good at basketball until my eighth grade year. I was just kind of that weird little uncoordinated kid. And then I started figuring out, I started going to the park every single day with my dad and shooting on double rims and running and doing all this stuff that I was like, man, this is dedication. This is what basketball is all about. So when I got actually dedicated to the game and I got decent at it, I knew how hard I had to work. And then I started studying a little bit about more and more players, whether they're in the NBA or college, and their mentality on things. And I was fortunate enough with a great coach in high school. One of the better, in my opinion, high school coaches in Western Kentucky. I was coached by Greg Overstreet. He taught me a lot, and he taught me what it was like to be a leader. I transferred high schools, I think my junior year. And so I got to be under him and be a player under him, and he taught me how to be a leader. And he made me really, really fall in love with basketball and made me, I guess, view myself differently on the floor. I could view myself as a coach, kind of a player coach. And then that's how everything really just took off for me. So I was fortunate enough to play in college as well and all that good stuff.
You think that his influence, because I always say that there's two paths to coaching, right? There's somebody that kind of always has known that they wanted to be a coach. Even when they're playing, they've kind of thought the game like a coach. Then there's other guys that are just strictly, hey, I'm a player, and then my career ends, and I'm like, I want to be able to stay involved in the game, so let me get into coaching. And it sounds like maybe you were already, once you got exposed in that way, that you were able to maybe start thinking about, hey, at some point, maybe I want to get into coaching. Or was that something that wasn't on your radar? I'm not sure.
It's actually something that's always been on my radar. So I was never the kind of kid. I was always realistic with myself. I'm a 6'5" slow, not super athletic kid from Kentucky. I knew that I probably wasn't going to make the NBA when I was in the fifth grade. But actually, video games helped me realize I want to be a coach. Playing NCAA basketball 2008 and being a coach on that game and, all those things, I was like, man, this coaching stuff's cool. When I got older, I realized, yeah, this is what I want to do for a living. I never view myself as a pro basketball player or a businessman or anything like that. I was always, probably from my freshman year of high school on, I was like, I want to be a college basketball coach. And it worked out that way, fortunate enough, for a little while.
So tell me about your favorite memory as a high school player. What's something that stands out when you think about your time as a high school player? What's the one moment that stands out to you?
Man, there's a bunch. Like I said, I was fortunate enough to be a pretty good high school player, and go on and play Division III basketball. So had a ton of really cool experiences, whether that was playing in tournaments or being MVP of games or things like that. I think looking back at it now, I have it from a whole lot different perspective because at the time, I was the man. I was the cool kid in school. Everybody was looking at me. I was the tall kid that was pretty good at basketball, so everybody knew who I was. And I feel like I took it for granted just a little bit. But looking back at it now from a coaching perspective, I think it's pretty cool. But there's not one certain memory that I have other than just being a part of the game, being a part of the environments, the packed gyms and all and things like that. And of course, it's one of the reasons why I made a career goal that we'll go into later, career decision. So if I had to pick one moment, probably the environment, how much people really truly care about high school athletics, especially in Kentucky.
Yeah, I do think that the environment in high school is one that it's really hard to replicate in terms of the intensity of the crowd, especially if you're in a community that's a basketball community where people come out and they support the team, and it really is super fun. And then I think one of the things that's interesting, and my son's playing Division III, and I know that was an experience that you were fortunate enough to be able to have as well. And I know at one point my son said to me this year, he's like, I kind of miss some of the crowds that we had at our high school games. Cause sometimes Division III, if you win, a lot of times you can get a pretty decent crowd. But if you're not winning, it sometimes is difficult to get people to those games. I do think that, to your point, that that's an experience that whether you're a coach or you're a player, it's always more fun to play in a good atmosphere with a packed gym. There's nothing like that. And anytime you get to experience it, I don't care what level, I don't care if it's middle school basketball, I don't care if it's high school, it's Division III, it's Division I, whatever, playing in front of a packed house, regardless how big that house is, it's a lot of fun. So tell me about just your experience making a decision to go and play at a Division III school. And I don't know if you have a piece of advice for somebody who's out there who's maybe a high school player or a high school parent who's in the process of making a decision about college basketball, and something that you learned about the process as you went through it that maybe would be relevant for somebody who's going through something similar today.
Yes. I did have one Division II offer. It was a partial scholarship. I had a good amount of NAIA offers, and a good amount of D3 offers with some JUCO offers. So I had plenty of decisions. Off the top of my head, probably 15 or so, 10 to 15 different schools that really wanted me. I went to the place that I thought I could be the most impactful, but also I knew what I wanted to do. So I knew I wanted to be a coach. So that was a big deal for me. I wanted to go somewhere where the coach valued me, where I could learn from that coach. The environment of Division III was so cool. And people ask me all the time, why would you go Division I if you could out of high school? And I don't know if I would. I really don't. I loved everything about Division III during my time. Now, I didn't play all 4 years because I got into coaching really early. But the years that I did play Division III, it was the best experience of my life. You're riding on charter buses and stuff like that. You didn't do that in high school. So it was super cool. Of course, you don't have athletic scholarships, so I didn't get school for free. I have student loans now, but still, people ask me, would you do it again? Of course. I would take out student loans again to go play Division III basketball. The feel, the environment of a team mentality at the Division III level. I played with guys that were realistic as well. So at the D3 level, we had guys that they wanted to be athletic trainers, they wanted to be therapists or doctors or whatever that may be. They had or business people like myself. I have a business degree. They had an end goal that didn't necessarily involve basketball 110%. Some of them did, of course. Some of them wanted to play at a higher level, or some of them wanted to play pro basketball. But for the most part, everybody knew their vision of what they wanted to do in the future outside of basketball. So it made things more fun. It wasn't constantly about basketball. You were actually having fun off the floor, especially with your coaches. So I think, me personally, I'm very biased to D3, but I was very fortunate with an amazing coach, a coach that I look up to today. So maybe it's a different experience for me, but I absolutely loved it.
Well, I think for me, again, and I'm speaking as a parent, that one of the things that I like about it and the experience that my son's getting to have at Ohio Wesleyan is you have the basketball, which is at a high level, but yet you also, because of the rules and the way things are and the lack of contact in the off season, you can also be a real college student, and you
Yes.
can get involved in things on the campus that I think with Division I, especially today, it's really hard to do. And I always go back to, honestly, I think, Colin, my experience as a Division I athlete from 1988 to 1992 is probably closer to what a Division III experience looks like today than what a Division I experience looks like today. Like, I'll give you an example. So when our season ended, when I was at Kent, we would go in and have our postseason meeting with coach, and when we had that meeting, I would get handed, "Hey, here's your workouts for the summer." And it was like a 2-page ditto of like, "Hey, here's the weights and whatever." And then they're like, "We'll see you back here in August."
Yep.
And there was no summer workouts. Like, I never was on campus once during the summertime, and I just got to go and work on my game and play pickup and do all the things that I wanted to do to make myself a better player. And now I look at the Division I situation where guys are on campus basically 48 weeks out of the year, 50 weeks out of the year. You've got the 20 hours, you got the workouts in the off season, which again, there's benefit to that. Obviously, guys get better and they have coaching and whatever. But I always think, man, I don't know if I'd want to listen to the same set of voices year round. Now, again, with the portal, I guess you don't have to listen to them for 4 years. You got to listen to them
Yeah.
you only listen to them for a year, but
If
still,
that.
yeah, exactly. So there's definitely some differences, but I just think that the Division III, what I love about it is that you're playing basketball at a high level with good dudes, and you get an opportunity to still immerse yourself into campus life and experience some of the things that a quote normal student gets to experience. And that's what I've loved about it the most for my son.
Exactly. I mean that, and honestly, if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for having the downtime and stuff after the season, or shoot, even when you first get on campus in that August or something, you're not really doing anything besides a couple of open gyms here or there with your teammates, and you're getting them together. But those summertime off season kind of deal, I get to go home. That's what got me into coaching, and that's what got me into coaching full time in the summer, busting my butt. And I think it really truly got me to where I was today. If I went Division II and played, or I took that NAIA offer, maybe who knows where I would be? Maybe I would be GA right now, or maybe I would be, at a small. Who knows? You never know. Small college doing the same thing I was doing when I was 20, or 21. So like, you never know. And I think that's why I always look back and I don't regret one choice. Because if it wasn't for that downtime, like you're talking about, I wouldn't have got as far as I have so far at such a young age in my coaching career.
So talk about the transition from player to coach. How does that happen? What does it look like? What's the first coaching job? What do you remember about it? What do you love about it? Just tell me how you get from A, I'm playing, to B, I'm coaching.
Hard work and funny stories. So I graduated high school. I was 18 years old, and in the summer, I started my own AAU program. I was like, you know what? I'm not doing anything. I'm just working to get better for my freshman year of college. Let's start doing something with coaching. Like let's get a head start on it. So I started going to some college camps and working as a camp coach, doing it old school. Not many people do that nowadays, but I listened to so many podcasts over the years, and so many people told me to do this, so I did. I'm like, I'm going to do it the old school way. I'm not going to send out just emails or try to call people. I'm going to make connections over the phone, of course, but I'm going to these schools and putting a face to face and having a conversation with these coaches. So I would do that, and then started my own AAU program, and it grew to be one of the largest, most well-known AAU programs in the state, which I'm very proud of. But I was 18 years old coaching 17U kids. So I'm coaching kids, even some unsigned seniors. So some kids that was in my grade, I'm coaching in the summer. It was crazy. It was nuts. I mean, nothing horrible or nothing like that, but people would be at these AAU tournaments and be like, "Who's the coach? Who's the coach?" I was like, "That's me." That's where things got started, and I was really busting my butt. I would be there Monday through Thursday. I'd be in Wisconsin or Ohio or Eastern Kentucky. I did a couple camps there, UT Martin, Georgia, at wherever. Monday to Thursday, being a camp coach, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm in Cincinnati or Louisville or somewhere being an AAU coach. So like, it's a lot of hard work that put me into that position. I mean, I made a ton of connections during that time, and fortunately enough, it gave me a couple job opportunities going into my junior year of college. So I was 21 years old, and then that's when I got my first college job. So it just fell into that. I built this AAU program up. I traveled so much and met so many people. I had actually a college that was recruiting one of my players in AAU. I took him on a visit, left there with a job offer, and I was like, okay, this is something I need to think about, because, of course, this is being a college coach is something I've always wanted to be, and I'm 21 years old, and so I was like, maybe I need to think about this, because I wasn't playing a ton. I was the slow guy at Division III. I wasn't very fast. I could just shoot the basketball. That's all I could do. I could shoot it. So I was like, maybe I need to seriously consider this because if I'm going to be like this for the next 2 years and not really play a whole lot, I mean, I'm realistic with myself. I know I'm not as fast as some of these other guys coming in. So I was like, I'm going to think about it. And ultimately, it led to my first college job. I was at Brescia University for a couple years. I was an assistant coach. A guy leaves. I ended up getting bumped up to the head assistant coach at 22. So, like, everything was really taking off. To sum it all up, a lot of hard work. And when you look up and look back at it, you're like, holy cow, an 18-year-old's coaching 17-year-olds. And then when I was 21, we had a player that was 28. So we had, you would think, oh my goodness, how does this work? But it worked. It worked. Building relationships with the players. And it was a pretty cool experience. That's how I got started in this whole thing.
How do you look back on the reps that you got in the time when you were coaching AAU? I always think that being able to coach your own team, regardless of the level, is really, really important. And I'll give you an example from my own life. So for 13, 14 years, I was the varsity assistant coach. And as the assistant coach, again, it's different than sitting in that head coach's chair, right? When I'm the assistant coach, I'm not making the substitutions. I'm not deciding when to call timeout. I'm not making the decision strategic. I may have input, but ultimately the decision isn't mine. And so I remember when there was a year, probably maybe my 10th or 11th year as an assistant, where our JV coach left and I was not only the varsity assistant, but I was the JV head coach. So now all of a sudden I go from just sitting on the bench doing my role to I'm back actually coaching the team and making decisions. And it took me, Colin, probably 5, 6, 7 games before I could manage in my head all this stuff. Like, again, I'm like, I'd forget the sub. Like I would be going, I'd be coaching, all of a sudden I'd be like, oh God, I forgot I got a sub, so I gotta get some guys in here, or like we should be calling timeout here. I'm like, yeah, you're the guy that should be calling timeout. And I think those reps, when you talk about like AAU, where you can play 30, 40 games in a summer, or I'm sure you probably were coaching multiple teams, right, in your program. So now you're coaching 70, 80 games, and people are like, it's just AAU. But you do learn some of those things that you need eventually to be a good coach. You're just getting reps coaching games. I think that's so underrated, is just the volume of reps that you can get for any young coach who's listening. I think personally, and from just the people that I've talked to, and I'm sure you'll back this up, that the more games you can coach, regardless of whether you're coaching fourth grade basketball or 17U AAU or whatever it is, the more reps you can get, the better off you're going to be in the long run for your career.
I agree. And, it's all about how you run it too. If you want to take it as an approach of you just want to win and you want to have some trophies hanging in your house or whatever, probably not going to work out. But when I wanted to do it, I did it. I didn't do it for fun. I started the program. My dad was my assistant coach. My best friend was my assistant coach. And I was like, I want to get into coaching. I want to coach college basketball. I want to run this how I would imagine a college basketball program would be run. Because, of course, I was going to be a freshman in college. So I didn't really know what it took at the college level to run a program. So by year 2 of that, I had a whole year of college. I got to see my coach run the program, the ins and outs of things, how things worked. So I took that approach from recruiting kids to play on my 17U team to getting on a circuit to, just building and branding and things like that. I took it as a college job. I really did. And you're right. I mean, I probably coached 50 to 60 basketball games in the summer, not counting doing all the little things as a camp coach of trying to organize kids, trying to make sure you get a head count of everybody, make sure nobody's hurt, or if somebody does get hurt, what you do there. So like, there was just so much stuff I'd done in my early years of when I first started. And I think that's really, I was the head coach, I was the program director and I built it up and people wanted to play for us. And it was really cool. Of course, we won and stuff. We got, in the 4 years that I did it, we got 30 something kids to play college basketball. I think it's all about how you run it. If you want to go in with that mentality like I did of, hey, I'm going to build this like I would a college program. So if somebody comes calling one day, whether that's an assistant coach or, whether I'm a head coach in the future. At the time, I probably thought I was going to be a college head coach at like 30, but it happened way sooner than what I thought. Well, so I was like, I'm going to have some experience doing this. I'm going to know what I'm talking about. And it actually led to an interview, a head coaching interview at a really, really small JUCO in Minnesota when I was 22. I knew I wouldn't got the job, but I still got the interview. And I feel like I did a good job. They gave me good feedback on it. So just those little things like that, it's all about how you approach the job. It's all about how you approach AAU and your mentality of thinking of things. It's going to be a lot of long days, a lot of long weekends, but 5, 10 years from now, you're going to look back and say it's worth it and I'd do it again.
Having the plan, right, of how what I'm doing right here in front of me can impact the long term of what I want to do. And it sounds like for someone as young as you were at that time, to be able to have the mindset and the mentality of I'm going to do this with the idea that that's going to help me to get here. Even like hearing you talk about going and working camps, which is, as you said, completely old school. So many guys that are my age who are in coaching, that's what they did, right? When they were in college, when they were just coming out of college, they went on the camp circuit. And again, camps were a much bigger deal back then because you didn't have AAU didn't proliferate the same way that it does now. But every college had a camp. The bigger schools had huge camps, so they're running multiple weeks, and they got 400 or 500 kids there every week. And so everybody went there to be able to learn and network and put themselves in front of people. What was your favorite camp that you worked? Did you have one that stood out that you're like, man, this one was really well run. I loved it. Which one was your favorite?
By far, I worked a couple years at Marquette University, Shaka Smart's camp. So it's funny because I was in high school. My dad has always been a huge Shaka Smart guy. When he took VCU to the Final Four, my dad was a huge Shaka Smart fan. So I grew up, not a Kentucky fan. I grew up like a VCU fan for about a year when I started getting into basketball. Then I was a Texas fan. So then people was like, why in the world are you a Texas fan, especially when you're in Kentucky? You didn't get good looks. And I told him, Shaka Smart, I love the energy. I love the way he plays and all that. So he goes to Marquette, and I'm old enough, and I see this camp job opening. So I hit up the director of ops, and I'm like, oh, can I do this? And at the time, I think it was maybe his first year, second year at Marquette, maybe second year. I'm not sure. I can't remember. They didn't provide housing. I had to get my own hotel, but they were like, hey, we can pay you $400. I said, I don't care. That's enough for my hotel and gas. I'm coming. And then that ended up leading into thing of meeting Shaka Smart and talking with him, and he's answering questions, and he's happy to help with me and my future coaching career. And then meeting Nevada Smith and Mark Dixon and all kinds of coaches at Marquette and building connections with them. Then I come back the following year. They all know me. I'm in practices. I'm viewing behind the scenes of stuff. I'm getting to go with a couple coaches, different places, and seeing what they do. And I'm still super young, so it was still like a little. They were still a little standoffish with me, but I got to learn so much from my favorite coach. I thought that was the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you talk about just the opportunity, again, it puts you there in person, right? And so it's a lot easier it's a lot harder to connect with somebody via email. It's a lot easier for a coach to ignore an email, to ignore a voicemail than it is for somebody to be at your camp working, and you can just again make that personal connection. I got another great story here. It actually relates to 5-star, and not that I wore the shirt for that, but a guy that's been on the podcast multiple times, Joe's Decision, who he works for USA Basketball, and he works with Unleashed Potential in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And Joe told me a story about when he was working at 5-star that they always had the famous Station 13 where you'd have your normal stations, and then after the regular session was over, guys would stay and coaches would run Station 13, and some players would stay and work on their game and whatever. And Joe always told me that he always wanted to work at Station 13 and work really hard and come up with great drills and put all his energy into it because he never knew who was watching it. Howard Garfinkel, who used to run 5-star one time, just came by his Station 13 while he was working. He said Garf just kind of looked at him and nodded his head at him, and said, just, hey, you're doing a good job. And Joe's like, that told me everything that I needed to know about just, again, wherever you're at, right? Do the best work that you can. And if you're doing the best work that you can where you're at, then somebody's going to notice that. And then that's how you get your opportunity. If you're already looking for your next opportunity while you're somewhere, it's probably not going to work out. But if you're focused on what you're doing, somebody who's over here that you're not even looking at is probably going to notice you. And then that's where, again, it builds those connections like you were talking about that gets you some opportunity. So talk a little bit about that first assistant coaching job at the college level and what you learned from that experience.
It was awesome, man. So, like I said, I was 21 and, I was working. I was at Brescia University, NAIA in Kentucky. It was about 40 minutes away from my hometown. So I drove probably about 45, 50. I drove back and forth every single day, uh, 50 minutes or so one way, to make sure I was there every single day. I didn't miss a practice, unless I was like sick or something crazy happened. Didn't miss a practice, didn't miss a game. So I was like, I'm doing this full tilt. I don't care. I made, I think, $2,500. And I was like, I don't care. I was like, I will pay you if I have to. Like, I'm a 21-year-old assistant coach. It was an amazing experience. We had a lot of really good players. We recruited a lot of really good players in there. We got multiple Division I bounce back kids. So I got the opportunity to coach guys that's played at a very, very high level. Got to coach some really good players that now play overseas. One of them plays in Europe, another plays in Mexico. Really cool experiences there. But being at a small college like that, a NAIA school, it was the head coach, me, and another guy. So I did everything. At 21, I was, you weren't going to tell me, I wasn't going to say no. I'm going to do whatever it takes. So I'm up washing uniforms at like 3 a.m. on road trips. And I'm also like full on recruiting and offering scholarships to kids that some of them were older than me. And, it was just awesome. I got to learn how to run a program. And then that assistant coach left, took the head women's job at Brescia. And then I got bumped up to the head assistant coach at 22. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, this is like, I don't know, it's a small NAIA. And, we were about 500. We weren't great. We weren't top 25 in the nation or nothing like that. But I was doing all these things. And I'm like, things are falling into place. Like, there's no telling what could happen next. So, I was there, and my first scout was against Murray State University. Steve Prohm came back, and I think that may have been Steve Prohm's first year back or second year back. I can't remember right offhand. And I was tasked with the very first game of the season doing the scouting report. And I was like, okay, this is probably a test because, it's a bye game. NAIA, we're expected to lose by 30, 40 points. We're there to get our money and go. So I was like, okay, but I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. So I'm on Synergy. I'm looking up their Twitter pages. I'm looking up Coach Prohm's style of play and all this stuff. We get into the game at Murray State University. Halftime, we're down 2. And I go back and I'm walking back into the locker room looking around like, if we win this game, I'm going to look like a genius. And I'm so cool. And I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world. We ended up being down 3 in the last media timeout. And then Division I things happened. We lost by like 18. But, it's just like the surreal feeling. I was a young dude that's always been wanting to do that. And then sure enough, I'm there doing a scout against Division I opponents, conference opponents, rivals. I proved myself. And, I wasn't always good by no means. Looking back at it now, where I'm at and the experiences that I've had now, I would probably look at that coach and be like, you're an idiot, dude. Like, come on, get it together. But I was trying my best. I was trying to learn. And whether that was learning myself or learning from my head coach, it doesn't matter. I was trying to learn and trying to do my best in learning the business. And ultimately, it led to a head coaching job at the college level at 23, which is like unheard of. And, I did well. I proved myself. That's all. One school took a very crazy leap of faith chance at a very, very small school, and it worked out. And it goes back to doing the laundry at 3 a.m., or doing scouts or whatever it took to be the best coach I could be. So it was a great experience.
What do you remember about that interview process for that job? What were some of the things that they asked you? What were some of the things that you asked them?
Yeah. So of course, I've been through a lot of interviews now, so it's hard to, it honestly is hard to remember every little thing. But, at that level, I brought that kid on the visit, one of the kids on the visit. And, the head coach was like, well, what do you think about being an assistant coach for me? And I'm like, I would think about it. Yeah, for sure. I'm not playing much anyway. And I want to get into the business. Like, if this is an offer, I'll do it. And so it wasn't a big interview process. It was kind of more of like, hey, I'm looking for help because I don't have enough money to pay people to get people in here. But I think it ended up being a win-win maybe. But, through the interview processes of all the other jobs that I've had, it's always young. It's always about are you going to discipline the kids? How's your discipline level? Things like that, being as a young coach. And I totally get it. I understand. So I think that did come up. Are you going to be able to do whatever I need you to do? Of course. Yeah. No matter what it took. I'm not going to say no. I'm just not that kind of guy. And like I said, I don't care if I have to pay money. I don't care if I had to do it for free. It was close enough to home where I could live at home. So I'm not out any money besides gas. But I had another job. I was working, doing online school too. I don't care. Whatever it takes. And I think the ambition got me that very first job, the excitement, the enthusiasm that I brought, and I still do today as a head coach. So I think that was the biggest thing there.
Yeah, I think that you hit on a couple things that have been themes that have run through many interviews on the podcast for young coaches. And one is you got to be willing to do whatever it is that you need to do and then do even more as a young guy, right? You got to be willing to sweep the floors. You got to be willing to do the laundry. You got to be able to go get the coffee. You got to be able to do whatever. Lots of things related to basketball, but lots of things that are unrelated to basketball. I think that's a huge piece of it. Two, you got to be willing to work for little or no money at the start of your career. And then the one thing that didn't affect you maybe nearly as much, but a lot of times you got to go and travel wherever it is that you got to go to be able to get that job. You got to be willing to move across the country if necessary. And those are three things that for anybody who wants to get into coaching at the college level, those are probably the three most common answers I've gotten to the question of what do I have to do to get into it? And that's work hard, be willing to work for little or no money, and be willing to go wherever the job is going to take you. And I think if you do that, you're going to at least get yourself in the door and get your career started. And then after you get that assistant job, then you go and you get an opportunity to be a head coach, right?
Yeah.
Pretty quickly thereafter,
Yeah.
and become the youngest college coach as a head coach in the country. So how does that happen? And what do you remember about that interview process and getting that job?
Yeah, so that was pretty crazy. So John Melvin College, I had a connection through there. And, so I coached USA, Team USA. I started that in 2023 as an assistant coach for Team USA in the United World Games. Not the one where you see Jason Tatum and Michael Jordan and all them. It's PhD hoops. So it's, I kind of look at it as like a Team USA B team probably. And it was, I mean, it was just one of them crazy things that I met one of the coaches that knows the president of the school. And I was like, can I get this job? And he's like, Colin, I don't know. Like, I don't know if you want this job. Like, it's going to be grueling. It's going to be daunting on you. You don't know what you're getting into. It's super small college. They opened, I think, maybe 3 or 4 years before, and they had a baseball program and a volleyball program, and they wanted to start men's basketball. And it was they didn't advertise it super well. So not many people knew about it, but I just happened to go through a job listing and just see it. And I'm like, hey, Tim, I know you have a connection here, right? He's like, yeah, I do. I'll call for you. So I interviewed. People put in good words for me, and ended up getting the job offer. And they may have offered it to a couple more people, but I accepted it within probably 30 seconds. And it's in Florida. So I was like, I accept. I'm moving myself to Florida tomorrow. I'll meet you at the campus. So it was crazy how it happened. It was, probably a little bit of luck, I would say. Definitely a little bit of luck. I was very fortunate because there's a lot of coaches, great coaches, personally, probably better coaches than me that haven't gotten an opportunity yet. I was just so happened to know a person that knows the person that is hiring, and the job wasn't advertised very well. So not many people knew about it. And I just somehow fell on the job. And I did a great job in the interview. And it led to being a college head coach at 23 years old.
What's that like in terms of the learning curve, figuring it out both on the court, off the court, running a program? What were some of the key lessons that you learned over the course of that year, figuring out what it meant to be a head coach? Because I think that, again, different sitting in the assistant chair at whatever level and then moving over to the head coaching position. So what did you learn? What lessons did you take away from your first year of an experience there at John Melvin?
Yeah. So, it was definitely different because when I was an assistant, I had all these ideas. I'm happy go lucky that this is going to work. This is going to work and this is going to work. And we need to do this better. And then I got in that chair and I'm like, no, this isn't. When my assistants will say something, I'll be like, no, this is not going to work. This is not going to work. So I definitely got that aspect of it, so starting a program, it's not like, getting a job and this school's been around for 100 years and they have players coming back. I had no players. And, they just started a men's basketball program. So we were practicing and playing out of a high school. So we didn't even have our own college basketball gym. So there were so many challenges that you had to face. We're in Pensacola Beach, Florida. So that is the biggest recruiting pitch, the biggest selling point. Like, hey, come play at the beach. And we got fortunate to get really good guys, in my opinion, because of that and because of the play style that I have. But, it was super challenging. Like, I was still having to do everything. I was still doing the laundry. I kind of wanted to micromanage everything. Like, I wanted to make sure I was like, okay, I know that it will be done right if I do it. And, that it was only for a couple months. And then I realized, like, I started listening more to people. Actually, a couple of guests on your show even said the same thing. Like, so I was micromanaging those first couple of years as head coach and it didn't work out. So I may be going into October practices, maybe a month before the season, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to give some leniency up a little bit, and I'm just going to try this because this is a lot on me. I'm still recruiting kids. I'm still trying to talk to kids. So this is a lot on me. So I'm going to give some to my assistant coaches. And it ended up working. It ended up relieving some stress from me. They ended up, I had a great staff there for a year. And, a lot of really good things happened. So, I believe just not having to micromanage a head coach and you got good assistants, that's the best thing that can happen to you as a head coach. And that can make you look even better, which it did. So, super small school with a lot of challenges, but we made it work.
Easier said than done to delegate, let's put it that way.
Yes.
It's easy to talk about that, especially as a first-time head coach. It's easy to say, "Oh, yeah, I'll delegate this to this assistant. I'll delegate that." But the honest truth is, when it's your name on the program for the first time and the wins and losses get attributed to you now, they don't get attributed to the head coach, and you're just sitting there as the assistant coach, your whole mindset definitely shifts and looks at things a little bit.
Right. And it's even harder on me because, at the time I'm 23. So
Correct. Absolutely.
the young card is always floating around, whether it's admin, whether it's AD, no matter what, it's always going to be floating around. So if I make one mistake, he's young, he can't do this. So that's why I was so nervous on doing that. But like I said, I had really good assistants and it ended up paying off really well. So
Yeah, it makes sense. It's the right thing to do. It's just not easy to do. People who do it well, part of it is you got to hire well, right? You got to have good assistants that you can trust, that are loyal, and that have some expertise, and then you hand it to them and they take it and run. And again, you're the guy steering the ship, right? There's lots of people that have jobs on the ship, but ultimately you're the guy that steers that boat and keeps it all going in the right direction. From a basketball standpoint, in terms of how you wanted your team to play. Obviously, at the college level, you have some degree of ability to recruit the types of players that can fit into the way you want to play. And I guess this is one benefit of having no returning players is you can go out and get the style of player, the type of player, at least theoretically, that you might want. So where were you in terms of having an identity of what you wanted your teams to look like on the floor when you took that job? And how close to the vision of before you got the job, when you were thinking about, okay, what do I want my team to look like? How close did you come to actually getting your team to look like what you thought you would want them to play like once you put them on the floor?
So I had my philosophy all planned out for when I was going to be a head coach when I was at Brescia. Excuse me, not because I didn't agree with anything, nothing like that. Just because I'm studying, I'm learning the game, and of course I incorporate things. But I had my whole philosophy of what I wanted to do. So my kind of philosophy, I'm a big Jim Crutchfield guy. I've never been able to meet or speak to him, and who knows, I probably will never be able to at Nova Southeastern. But I've studied so much. I've listened to every podcast he's been on. He was even on one podcast that wasn't even talking about basketball, but I still listened to it because maybe he'll drop something that I need to know. So I wanted to implement his system, and of course, you got Shaka Smart. and his energy and his level of toughness and what he instills in his program too. I've been around that. So like, of course, I've always been a fan. Like I mentioned, I was a fan when I was a little kid. Then I got to like kind of work with him a little bit and see what he does in practices and see the energy that he has. So I'm like, okay, I want to put these two together. But then I also got my little things that I've learned from other people along the way. And I kind of bundled it up into one big Play-Doh ball and made Colin Doss's system out of it. So we were going to play fast. We're going to run and jump. We're going to press for 40 minutes. And of course, some game scenarios, you may see us in a zone or something like that in half court, just whatever it takes to win. But for the most part, 95% of the game, you're going to see us playing fast. We're getting up and down the floor. We're playing with a 10 to 12-second shot clock in practice, trying to make quick decisions, freedom on the offensive side. We want our guys to be able to play conceptual basketball. So we focus on skill development. We focus on playing live in practice, disadvantages, advantages, whatever that may be for the offense or defense. So that offensive side of the ball, we wanted the guys to play how they feel like they could play. I want to give them confidence. I want to build a connection with them. If I let them play how they want to play, then they will play freely. They will play more confidently. And the more confident you play, the more shots you knock down, in my opinion. I'm a big guy on mentality and toughness and all that stuff, and that's from Shaka Smart. So I wanted to do that on the offensive side. On the defensive side, I'm going to coach you up. I'm going to coach you as hard as I can. We're going to press. We're going to trap. We're going to get deflections. We're going to count deflections. We better have this number of deflections per game. We better have this many kills, which goes back to a Marquette thing, Shaka Smart. But we want to control the tempo. Ultimately, we want to get more shots off than the other team, because if you get more shots off, you statistically have a higher chance to win. And it worked. So we were USCAA Division II, very small. A lot of people don't even know what USCAA is. It's for the small colleges. We led the nation in the whole USCAA Division I and Division II in points per game, 96 points per game. I think we averaged 11 made threes a game, number one in three-point percentage, number one in rebounding, and we did not have the biggest team at all. But it was all built off toughness, grit, and effort, and playing fast, getting an opportunity to get offensive and defensive rebounds. So that's the kind of guys I was looking for, guys that was going to play as hard as they could, and, of course, guys with a little skill. But at first, I first got the job, I was looking at, I need to find this 6'11" guy. I need to find this 6'10" guy. We got a 6'10" guy. We got a 6'9" guy. They ended up getting there, and we didn't play super fast at first. We played with them. We tried to press and all this other stuff. 6'10" kid in a scrimmage against a junior college in Mississippi breaks his ankle. So then he's done. And then the other kid goes home and gets homesick and goes home to California. So then we have a smaller team. My biggest guy is now 6'7", and then my next guy is 6'7", and I got a 6'6" guy. That's my biggest guys, and they're pretty much guards. So I'm like, we can do what we want to do now, and it ended up working. And moving to the high school level, I do the same thing, and it ended up working there as well. So it's great.
How do you instill that toughness that you're talking about? What does that look like day to day in practice, in conversations with your players, with your coaching staff? When you talk about being able to press and having that mentality, I just think of the relentlessness, the toughness. Those two things to me go hand in hand. So how do you get your team to buy into that day by day so that they can have those characteristics on the floor when they need them? What does that look like for you?
The biggest thing is relationships. You have to be personal, not transactional. So if I'm personal with the kids, if I'm able to talk to them about off-court issues, about just whatever it may be, maybe they have something going on in their life. I'm going up and I'm talking with them. I'm laughing with them. We're having fun. We're joking around. But when we hit the floor, it's all serious. It's serious business. We take care of practice for an hour and a half, or whether it's a game, we got 40 minutes of a basketball game, we're going to go out and compete. Building those relationships is the number one thing of what we want to do. Because without those relationships, kids don't play hard. If they don't trust you, if they're not confident in you, if they don't like you, they're not going to play hard for you. Why would they? Honestly, I probably would have been the same way as a player. Why would I play hard for a guy that don't care about me? Everybody's a little selfish at the end of the day. So, building relationships was the first thing. And as far as the early season practices, we're going. We're adopting the Jim Crutchfield style. We're playing games. Our conditioning is games to 150 points. You stop every 25, 50 points. You're running with a 10, 12-second shot clock. Some days toward the end of the week when we were doing it and they were tired, I'd be lenient and give them 14 seconds. So things like that where you have to play hard, second chances, you get 14 seconds up for a possession, you better go and you got to go hard. And then that just becomes the norm all season long. So the relationships and the way we approach practice, just the toughness of practice, we're trying to get one thing to the next. We're practicing for maybe an hour and a half, hour 45. We're getting done with a drill. Maybe it's 6 minutes long. Okay, boom, blowing my whistle. This is what we're running next. We're jumping right into the next drill and we're going and going and going and going and going. So when you get into a game, that toughness and stuff, it's not necessarily that you built it, it's just what you instilled. So they don't know anything else. They don't know anything different. They've been going as hard as they can since August or, September, whatever that may be, that start date. So it's the norm for them. It's not necessarily anything crazy or different. You just got to work your butt off with the relationships. If you don't do that, then you don't know what kind of team you're going to get. You're going to get an emotional team. You're going to get a team that maybe shows up late. Kids show up late. You're going to get an unorganized team, dysfunctional team. It's all about those relationships first. That's how you get the hardest playing teams.
How do you think about building that relationship in the balance between a formal meeting with the kid where maybe you once a week sitting down with every player for 10 minutes, or you do a pregame or a preseason, a midseason, a postseason. So more of the formal things that you do on purpose that are in your schedule versus sort of the informal guys are stretching before practice, or you're in the locker room, or there's a team gathering, or you're in school and they're walking by and you're just grabbing them to have a quick conversation. How do you go about building those relationships and talk about the balance between formal and informal conversations?
Yeah. So one thing, I'm the young guy. So I'm on TikTok and all that stuff. I view social media, so I know what they like. I know what the sayings are. I know what they're talking about. So just cracking jokes with them and stuff. Just one thing with me is if one of my players walks by, I will never ever just not say anything to them. If I see them out in public, sorry, but you're going to have to talk to me for at least 30 seconds before you can go on. Like, I'm going to make sure I grab you. How you doing? Everything good? What you doing? Just simple stuff. And that builds a level of connection already with the kids. They don't know you from Adam, especially at the college level. I had no idea. One of them came down from New York. I've never even been to New York, California, Colorado, Utah. So, plays people from all over the nation. Why would they trust me, right? But it's just, I'm going to make sure you know that I care about you. And a big thing is for me is the kids want to text now. They're not necessarily, they don't want to hear a 15, 20-minute conversation, sit down all the time. And, I may be different. Maybe they do. But the kids that I've had so far in the 2 years as a head coach, they don't want to hear that. So I may just send them a text. All a text is going to do is, they can read it, reply to it, boom, it'll take a minute, I'm just going to say, hey, just want to let you know you did an awesome job in practice today. I care about you. I'm super excited for your future, things like that. They get that, and they also get to keep that message so they don't forget about it. They can always go back to that, right? So if they ever get mad, well, coach didn't play me tonight. But hey, remember, dude, go back to the message I sent you a month ago. Like this matters to me. You matter to me. That helps. That right there does it. So I'm not a big guy on, of course we want to have end of season meetings, and if we ever have an issue with a kid, yes, we'll sit down and talk to them. But as far as things go with the way kids are now, being able to just shoot them just a simple text or a phone call saying, hey, care about you. Just let me know if you ever need anything. Things like that. That goes a super long way with them. It's worked so far. It may not work in the future. Who knows? It may not work next year. But so far, it keeps working. So I'm going to keep riding on it.
That's a great point in terms of meeting the kids where they are, right? You got to, hey, everybody's texting or everybody's doing that. This is how we communicate. Let's figure out a way to communicate and meet them where they are and continue to lift them up so they can communicate in person when they're talking to you face to face. But yeah, it's a great point about, we don't need to talk for hours. We can just boom, quick text, let somebody know you're thinking about them, you're talking to them, you're sharing something with them.
Right.
That continues to build that connection.
Right. We're always on our phones now. It's just what we are. I am. I'm a young guy, so maybe not everybody is, but they're going to see that. And maybe it's not the best way to do things, but it's my way of doing things, and it's worked. So just a simple text or a simple phone call. Hey, I want to let you know I care about you. Let me know if you ever need anything. It's always, thanks, coach. I love you, coach. You're awesome, coach. I appreciate you giving me this opportunity, all of those things. And it means a lot to me because honestly, it's something that I can go back and I can look at as well. So, like, if we're on a losing streak and I'm like, man, what am I doing? Like, I'm messing everything up. I can go back and realize, man, these kids care about me too. So, we're going to get through it together. So, I mean, it helps both of us. It just just positivity, spreading positivity around whatever program I'm at. That's what we want to do because the more positive, the better you play, of course, and the more games you win. And of course, the more you win, the more job opportunities there is for me, potentially more money. That would be amazing. So, it's all about positivity. If you let negativity in your program, it'll come crashing down. So, and it'll crash down faster than all of the buildup of positivity. So, it's just my way of doing things.
I love that in the sense that it's a two-way street, right? That, yeah, you're building a relationship with the player's also building that relationship with you, and there's positive energy flowing both directions. And I think that's really, really important because sometimes coaching can be a lonely job. And there's a lot of times where you feel like you're on your own and everybody's against you and you're got a losing streak. And sometimes it's nice to be able to just look at a message and say, hey, yeah, I remember when I connected with this kid, or that's what it's all about. And I think being able to have those anchors, those things that you can go back to as a coach when times are tough, a simple little message from a player certainly can be valuable in that particular way without question.
Yeah, and
Tell me
me,
about the
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go.
Me as a young coach, like I have severe anxiety because I'm just always afraid to mess up. You always see it all the time is, well, he's a young coach, he's not ready. I mean, not necessarily talking about me, but anybody. He's not ready, or he can't discipline a program. He can't do this, he can't do that, he's young. So when I hear that, it for me, it's like it gives me severe anxiety of every single game. My heart's pumping. I'm nervous. I'm shaking. Like I just want to win. I don't care if we're playing a team that's 30-0 or a team that's 0-30. I'm going to be shaking and I'm going to be nervous just because I want to win. I want to prove everybody wrong. So that goes back to seeing those texts because there's a lot of times. We had a really good year at Murray High School this year. We had a really good year last year at John Melvin. But there was times that I was like, man, like the world is against me. Nobody wants me here. Nobody cares about me. But then I can go back to those text messages and it's pretty cool.
All right, so tell me about the transition from college head coach to high school head coach. First of all, talk about the why, and then we can get into the year that you had at Murray.
Yeah. So everybody asks me why. Why would you leave a small, it's a small college program. And that's why I said right there, because it's a small college program. It was a definition of a small college program. Nothing wrong with that. Just, newer schools have challenges. They have different ways that they can only do their, limited money. For instance, like I said, we didn't have a gym. So we were going, playing and practicing out of a high school. There's a lot of challenges that came along with that. And the thing about Murray High School is it's back home. It's in Kentucky. It's about an hour away from my hometown, but it's built off of tradition. They've had so many good teams. They have won so many basketball games through their history, so many championships. It was just a job that was special to me. And, I just was like, man, I got the call about it. And I was like, man, we could really do something special there. And of course, going back to what I was talking about earlier, as a player, the environment of things. Small college, John Melvin, we were 25-6 last year. I think off the top of my head, maybe 11-3 in conference play. And we were the number 10 team in the nation in USCAA, the highest scoring team in USCAA. I guarantee you at our home games, I think maybe we had the maximum of maybe 40 people there. Like it's just, there wasn't an environment. And the thing about Murray is they pride themselves off of basketball. They love football, they love basketball. They pack the gyms and people truly care. So when I got that call about it, I was like, I'm thinking about this. This would be a really good opportunity for me. Of course, it's dropping down from the college game, which made me really nervous. So I was kind of debating back and forth. Is that what I want to do? And actually, I had three other head coaching interviews at a college, another two USCAA programs, and a junior college program in Virginia. And I was a finalist for two of those. But then they ended up choosing somebody else, and it goes back to the age thing. And I was like, Murray's interested in me, and I'm interested in Murray. I think this is where my heart is. It's an opportunity for me to go back home. I've built enough connections now, Division 1, 2, 3, NAIA, JUCO. Hopefully I'm blessed enough to be back in a position, have to be an assistant coaching position in the future in college or something. But right now I'm super happy where I'm at. I'm assistant athletic director and a head coach now at 24 years old at a really, really respected high school in Western Kentucky, a high school that used to beat the dog crap out of me when I was playing. So it was a tough decision. It was the hardest decision in the world. And it brought a lot of really good memories back being at the Final Four this year and seeing all the good college coaching friends of mine, how much I do miss college. But I love the high school game just because of what I was just talking about, and it's been a great decision, and I plan on being at Murray for a long time. I'm happy there, and that's what matters the most ultimately.
Absolutely. Biggest difference between college and high school off the top of your head?
Well, so I got the high school job at Murray, and it was about April, and a little after that, going into June, because we always play summer basketball in Kentucky in June. So we were busier than June, but between April and June, I caught myself sitting at home watching TV. And I was just like, what am I doing right now? I don't know what to do with my life. I realized I'm not recruiting 100 kids anymore. Like, I'm not having to be on phone calls and text all the time. I was like, I'm gonna have to go out and do something this summer. So like I got to go on trips. I got to go with friends to different places across the country. I went to Las Vegas. I went to Louisiana. I went to Florida, and just I had me time and free time, and I didn't have to go recruit and go on AAU visits and high school visits and all this other stuff and meeting kids. And it was a nice change of pace. Definitely different. You don't really realize it until you're out of it for a little bit, because you're just constantly recruiting. And the times you aren't recruiting, you're worried about coaching a basketball game and how you're going to win. So it was a really nice change of downtime and change of pace. Of course, you're dealing with a whole different skill group now. So I'm dealing with guys that really they're coming to John Melvin to play basketball. That basketball is their main sport. It's what they want to do. Some of them want to go play pro. They love the game. But at the high school level, maybe my third best player, his best sport is baseball, or he cares the most about football. You never know. So you got to have that mix. And that's actually helped me in my coaching career. Just different things. Like Murray, the high school level has helped me so much. And I feel like it has elevated me even further from when I was in college.
How'd you put together your staff?
So I was so fortunate enough at John Melvin. I got to hire a couple people. I hired a guy from Louisiana who actually ended up taking over from me. And then I also hired another guy from Florida. So I got to do, just normal college coaching staff. The high school staff, I was super lucky. The two assistants that was there before me, they were there. One was there, I think he went on his 7th year this year. Amazing. And I'm talking amazing. Like, Coach Kendrick is one of the best assistant coaches anybody could ask for. There's times where I've came up to the gym before and he has personal workouts going on, and he didn't even have to, he's like, I didn't want to bother you. He said they wanted to get some shots up, and this was your day off, so don't worry about it. I'm good. I'm working them out. Like, I'm like, holy cow, this is awesome. Like, so I fell into a gold mine with him. Dwayne Curtis is another assistant of mine. He's an alumni, so people already know who he is. He hit one of the biggest shots in Murray High School history, so he's known for that. He's great at player development. I was like, I want to keep you on staff too. And then my third assistant, none other than I reunited from the AAU days. I brought my dad back on coaching staff with me, so he is my assistant coach as well. So we get to share that father-son duo on the sidelines. Probably not always happy-go-lucky all the time. Of course, you got to clash heads at some point, but it was really cool. Like, we won a lot of games this year. Murray was 9-19 before I got there. The same exact kids, they had nobody graduate, and we went 22-8 this year. Sorry, 21-8. And it was, in my opinion, it was because of the amazing assistant coaches that I had.
What's the most underrated key thing to building a good high school program in your mind? What's something that people don't think about very much that you think is the key to building a good program?
I think it goes back to the relationships, because you build these relationships off the court and on the court. that helps them mature. And the more mature program that you have, the more you're going to win. Just in my opinion, if you have an immature program where you're talking and you got the little freshman on the sidelines that's poking fun at somebody or dribbling a basketball, that's immaturity within a program where, you make these connections with each kid. And I did that within the freshman team and the seniors on the team. And of course, it's hard. You got 30 something kids in the program. You can't always build the best connection, like we are best friends kind of connection with every single one of them. But I do the best I can, and our staff does the best we can. That's one of the biggest things I told them. It's like, guys, make sure we value relationships more than anything. I think that will be where, because, you're trying to flip losers into winners. They were 9-19. They won 9 games last year. That was the least amount of games that Murray High's won in like 20 years or something like that. So they're not used to losing. And, they were kind of the younger guys on that 9-win team. They didn't graduate anybody, but they were inexperienced. So their first real roles of varsity basketball was losers. So, of course, when I got there, the whole program was negative. Like the view of the community, like, man, they're not great. The media, I think they picked us like 8th or 9th out of 15 teams in the area. The players were negative. Like, I don't want to lose again. I don't want to do this crap again. And this was their 3rd coach in 3 years. So it's super tough for them. So I was like, here's the biggest approach we got to make. Positive relationships first. And then everything else will fall into place. And I feel like personally, especially at the high school level, if you don't do that, then you're going to have immaturity in your program. You're going to have, everything's going to start trickling down. And another thing on top of that is trying to get the parents on the same page as us. When you're at the high school level, the parents are a part of your program too. I've heard plenty of coaches over the years, I don't get involved with the parents. I don't want to talk to the parents. I want to talk to the players because I want to build lifelong, whatever. I just want to build maturity within them. I want to teach them this. Sorry, but little Johnny that's 15, sorry, you have to talk to his parents. And a lot of people may not like that, but unfortunately, you have to have parents involved in the program. And I'm fortunate enough where I have amazing parents. I really do. At the start of the year, we went through, hey, here's the rules as a player. Here's the rules as a parent. We need everybody on one collective page if we're going to turn this thing around. We ended the year with 0 parent meetings. Nobody came to me, said, I need to talk to you. We need to sit down and talk, or nothing. And I think that was because we were all on the same page. And of course, I'm sure, not everybody was happy within the program, but they didn't go and spread that to their kid. They didn't go spread that to somebody else, and then it trickled down to another player. Because when that happens, the player will start thinking that negative mentality again and start, thinking about what mom or dad told them. And then they'll turn against me or turn against another teammate. And then things can trickle down from there. So I think that's the 2 biggest things is the relationships with the players, the staff, and your community. And the second thing, of course, is having the parents involved and having the parents on the same page within the program.
You make a great point that I think a lot of coaches would say that they don't necessarily love talking to parents, right? I mean, it's not anybody's number one thing.
I don't
They're
either.
like,
Trust me, I don't.
right,
I do not.
correct. It's like nobody loves that. I know, again, in my teaching career, nobody likes to have a conversation with the parent. That's just not something that, again, coaches and teachers just don't love to do that. And yet at the same time, it's so important. I always say proactive communication, right? Trying to be able to talk to somebody before there's a potential problem. You get to know them, you build the relationship, you build it positively. And then if there ever is a situation where something goes maybe a little haywire, now you've already established a good relationship with the person that makes that second harder conversation much easier. And yet that's, like I always say, that's easier said than done. And I've been a parent on teams where the coaches were very open and would talk all the time. And then I've been in other situations with coaches where the coach could walk right by you before or after a game and might not say a word to you, even though you're walking 2 feet away from them and
Right.
they clearly know who you are. So everybody has a different philosophy. I think the one that you're espousing is the right one, because whether you like it or not, especially in today's world, the way that the youth sports and youth basketball in particular has gone, right? Parents have been driving their kids to travel in AAU games from the time they're 8 years old. And so by the time they're 15, 16, 17 years old and they're on the varsity team, that parent's logged a lot of miles and a lot of money and a lot of
Yes.
time with their kid. And so to think that they're suddenly going to just hand them off to you and completely disappear, it's not the way it works at the high school level. So you have to make sure that you keep them engaged
Exactly.
for sure.
And I'm not perfect by no means. There was probably some times, during the season where I did walk past some parents and not say anything. But if a parent ever approaches me like, "Hey coach, great job," or whatever it may be, "Hey coach, I'm looking to get food for the kids next week." I'm going to stop and talk to them. But when you're in that season mode, you just kind of. But you know what? I'm no saint with it. I'm sure I've made people unhappy, but I truly don't mean to. And vice versa. I'm sure parents made me unhappy, and I'm sure they didn't mean to. But if you get them all on the same page, I mean, that's something that I'm still trying to do and work to do better of in year two. I think that makes a very successful high school program, especially if the parents are thinking positively, the players, that's easier to get the players to buy into.
We've talked a ton about different things that you've done to improve your craft over the course of your young career at this point. But when you think about what you do to try to grow as a coach and improve your craft, what are some of the things or people that you turn to? Is it books? Is it watching film? Is it reaching out to fellow coaches or mentors? I'm sure it's probably a combination of all those things, but just talk a little bit about your own personal growth plan and how you try to improve day by day as a coach, the same way you're asking your players to do.
Yeah. So from a mental standpoint, a mentality standpoint, a team standpoint, a culture building standpoint, I'm going to resort to books or some kind of video or article that I can get better at. Things that I can learn, whether that's psychology, whether that's another basketball coach on team building, shoot, even some football coaches, or things like that. You can learn a lot from different coaches. I probably tend to reading things or listening to things when it comes to things like that. When it goes to X's and O's, I want to watch film on, I want to make sure I'm going to find, you can go to Twitter and find 100 different plays and people are like, man, this is a killer play. But that's a killer play for UConn. I don't necessarily have kids that can play at UConn. So I think for a coach, finding plays and finding sets and things that actually fit your personnel. So usually what I do, I kind of just sit down and break down my personnel before I really want to put a play in. I want to make sure, okay, I can put this guy here, this guy here, this guy here. If they're fouled out, I can put this guy, this guy, this guy here. And I'm like, if I think that can work, then we're going to roll with it. So a lot of analyzing plays and sets before I put anything in. A lot of what ifs go into that, like what if this happens, what if that happens. So that goes to more video and film work. So a lot of things, but I turn to a lot of coaches as well, just on little things. Like if I ever need to talk to somebody, I'll go to my mentor and be like, hey, I'm having this trouble with this kid. Have you had any experience like this before? If so, can you help me out with it? What approach would you take? Things like that. Shoot, sometimes I'm even like, hey, I need this and this. Do you got anything for it? But for me personally, we're fast paced. We want to play fast. Well, we were a top 25 scoring team in the state of Kentucky this year. Of course, I told you number one in the nation last year in college and USCAA. So we always play fast. The coaches that I'm friends with don't do anything like I do. So the rules and principles are a little different, so it's hard to get things all the time. But the cool thing is this year at the end of the season, we had to resort to a 1-1-3 zone. Actually, we didn't have to resort to that. I chose to do that. I wanted to do something different, and I got that from help me out UNLV. Shoot on the towel. I cannot believe I just went blank. I'm sorry. It's late.
But Jerry Tarkanian.
Yes. I'm sorry. 1-1-3 amoeba defense, and I was like, you know what? I think I can put this in with my group, and we ended up doing it, and it worked well. I turned to slowing things down, so I turned to more coaches that play half court style of basketball and things like that, and they helped me out a ton with it. And it went pretty well. Probably not as good as the fast paced style I like to play, but it was a little different, and I learned from it as a coach. So a ton of different ways. No one specific answer. But there's a lot of things you can get out there on the internet these days. But the biggest thing is knowing that just because Michigan runs it, just because UConn runs it, doesn't mean your team can run it. Doesn't mean your fifth grade team can run it. You have to make sure your personnel, your team can run it before anything.
It's a great point because there's so much good stuff out there that I'll find myself, and I'm not even really coaching a team, and I'll find myself scrolling through, and I'm like, well, let me see what I did. Let me look at
Right.
this, and oh, I love that. Let me bookmark that and take
Yeah.
that, and then I'm like, then I go back and really look at it. I'm like, yeah, there's like 4 different actions going on at the same time, and then it
Yeah.
ends with an alley-oop dunk over the back of the
Yes.
zone. I don't think I'm really gonna be able to run that and implement that with my high school freshman girls, sophomore girls. I don't think that's really gonna be able to help us out too much. So
Did
go
I
ahead.
did that at the end of the year. I was just end of the year, long season this past year. I think we're sitting at 18-5 or something like that along those lines, 18-4. We started playing we have a kid, a big kid, 6'5", probably 300 pounds. He's a 4-star lineman. Every SEC school in the country has offered him for football. Tennessee, Kentucky, Louisville, Ole Miss offered him today. So that's a different perspective. And, later in the season, I'm kind of getting drained. I'm like, I really like this play. And I think it was a horns action into kind of a chin series. But then I guess I watched it and then scrolled and then just scrolled without finishing it. Ended up in a windmill alley oop dunk. And I was like, I don't think my big guy can do that. Let me go ahead and it was a back screen into a lob windmill dunk. I don't remember who did it. I think maybe Texas or somebody, but I was like, yeah, let me get that one off of there. So I clicked that.
That's funny. That's good stuff, Colin. I do that. I do that all the time. I like the action, then I really look at it, I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't really think we can do that. All right. What's the number one lesson you learned this past season about coaching a high school team? When you look back and reflected on the season, what's the number one thing you learned?
Uh, Probably the biggest thing that I learned is everybody takes in differently. Terminology from the college level to the high school level is way different. There was some times earlier in the season before we really got started playing, I felt like I wasn't doing my job. Like there's a lot of terminology that I was using that was maybe a little advanced for them. Then I slowed things down and I was like, I don't think I'm doing the right thing. Like this feels really simple. This feels like stuff that, should have been taught a long time ago. But it's not because I had to slow down and remember some of these kids are 14. So the terminology was the biggest thing, I think, from a basketball perspective. I was like slowing things down. I felt like I wasn't doing my job. I was like, man, I'm not doing good enough. But I was teaching them new things. And now we've gotten to a point where I can talk to them in a terminology how I did at the college level. So I think that was one of the biggest things. But it worked out. It worked out, and it's developing their IQ. It's helping them fall in love with the game more, be students of the game. It's worked out well for us. Hopefully, it will continue to do that down the line.
That's really well said. I think the idea of standardizing your terminology and matching it to the age of your team or the ability of your team to be able to comprehend it, I think is key. And then the only way that you're able to figure that out is by being self-reflective, right? And I think that being self-aware and understanding yourself and always trying to look at and analyze, is what I'm doing working? Is there some alternative way that I can do it? I think as a coach, and just as a human being in general, I think it's one of the most underrated skills that a person can have is the ability to look at themselves critically, and not critically where you're beating yourself up, but just critically in terms of, yeah, I tried this. Did it work? Yeah, it worked. Well, why did it work? Or no, it didn't work. Why didn't it work? And then trying to figure out how can I do that better? And I think the best coaches certainly are very, very good at that ability to self-reflect. And I think you obviously were able to do that and come up with I'm sure more than one thing that you figured out, good and bad, right?
For sure. Yeah. Coach, I criticize myself and beat myself up more than any coach in the nation probably does. I won a college coach of the year, conference coach of the year last year. I won a region coach of the year so back-to-back coach of the year awards, and I was nominated for a national coach of the year at a college level. I still to this day say, no, I'm not a very good coach. I'm not it. I'm not the guy. Just because one, I don't view myself that way. But yeah, I'm realistic. I feel like to be a good coach, you have to be kind of realistic with yourself. Last year, I was very fortunate with really good players. This year, I was fortunate with really good players. Who's to say down the line 10 years from now, maybe I can reflect and say, maybe I got to do this a lot better. Maybe I need to change my system. Maybe I have different players now that just, it's all about being realistic with yourself. And that's one thing that I'm okay with being, I'm coachable. I always have been. In my opinion, maybe you may ask my high school and college coach, they may say, "No way." At least in my opinion, I just may have been dumb as a box of rocks back then, but I tried to be coachable the best I could. I've always been a coachable guy, so I don't care if it's a parent. There may be a parent, "Hey, coach, how about you try this and this?" Okay, I'll keep it in the back of my mind. Maybe it will work. So always a student of the game, but I'm always realistic with myself. If something's not working, okay, let's pull out of this press. There's a couple times this season we were doing the run and jump. It didn't work. We caught ourselves down 15, 17 one time. I'm like, okay, I got to change things up. Being realistic with yourself is the biggest thing. And it actually changing things up actually helped us come back from down 17 and win that game by 2 points. Like it's just that's a necessity if you want to be a really really good coach. And of course, I have no room to talk. I'm 24, going to be 25, and just started my head coaching career. Of course, it's been great. Have a great overall record, great win percentage, great accolades, all that stuff. But I'm nowhere near where a guy that's been in it 50 years, 40 years as a head coach. Nowhere near that level, and I have a long time to go. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, it's all about being realistic with yourself, knowing what you have, what you don't have, not only from a team perspective, but yourself as a coach. Maybe I'm not the most well spoken. Okay. I need to work on that. Maybe I don't have the best offensive stuff. Okay. I need to work on that. But also give credit where credit's due, too. If you're a pretty good defensive minded coach, gloat that around a little bit. Pick yourself up sometimes, too. I don't do that very well. You can ask anybody that you want to. My assistant coaches see it all the time. My friends see it all the time. I don't pick myself up ever, but I try to once in a very blue moon.
Well, here's the thing. I think what you sense is that you have to have some confidence, right? You have to have confidence and belief in what you're doing. And part of that comes from your preparation. But then you also have to have a growth mindset that you understand that where I'm at now is not where I can be a year from now, 2 years from now, and I'm going to continue to grow. The game obviously itself evolves, and me as a coach, I continue to grow and study and learn and do all the things that we've talked about tonight in terms of studying and reading and watching film and talking to mentors, and all those things are, yeah, you could be confident in what you're doing right now today, and then also with the idea that I know I'm not perfect, I'm not a finished product, I can keep growing. And I think anybody, regardless of whether you're 20 years old or you're 56 years old, I think again, the best people in whatever it is that their career is, they're trying to do those things all the time. It's just what
Yes.
good people do. All right, before we wrap up, two-part question to finish it out. Part one, when you look ahead over the next year or two, what do you see as being your biggest challenge? Obviously, you're heading into year two as a head coach. So your biggest challenge. And then the second thing, when you think about what you get to do each and every day, when you wake up in the morning, what brings you the most joy? So let's start with your biggest challenge and then your biggest joy.
My biggest challenge is, probably going back to what I said earlier is being able to adapt. I have my system, I have my philosophy that I really want to run all the time. But now, I mentioned Ryan Walls, the big kid, the big 4-star lineman. He didn't play much for me at the start of the year. I probably should have played him more. He's dominant down in the post. He didn't play much for me because he's a little slower in what we try to do. Just, I was so stuck of we need to press. This is how we're going to be successful. And we were. But he came in and he was starting by the end of the year. He played the last 10 games of the season and dominated. Knowing that, okay, maybe I need to adapt to a few things. That's going to be my biggest thing. Just not being stuck in one certain way of having to play fast, keeping that same level of mentality and intensity, that will never drop. You better play as hard as you can and go as hard as you can in practices and games and all of that. But, maybe at the end of the day, maybe I need to switch up some presses. Maybe I need to look at things a little differently because of personnel, because you're not always going to have that pressing style year in and year out. You may have a couple slower guards in the future. And if you have slower guards in the future that get blown by, the press that I run is probably not going to work too well. So that'll probably be the biggest challenge. I'm not a very smart guy, so you may have to repeat the second question for me.
Second part, you are not alone. You are not alone in this one. The biggest joy. What do you get the most joy from and what you get to do every day, Colin?
Man, I love, and it goes back to what I said earlier too, but my biggest thing is I love seeing the joy on everybody's faces when we win. Murray High has always been a 1A school. Dominated 1A, went up to 2A in 2024, I believe, 2024. Didn't win a 2A sectional, 2A, none of that. Well, we won the 2A sectional championship. We do it differently in Kentucky. The 1A and 2A tournaments are in the middle of this year. So we won our 2A sectional, and the kids were winners. They got to cut down a net in January, and like looking around and seeing parents happy and taking pictures, and the kids cutting down nets and taking pictures with each other and hugging each other. And like, I think that's why I look forward to, I love winning, of course. I love getting the credit for winning, but being able to see the kids happy coming in there and joking around and picking fun with me or the other coaches or their teammates, I love it. I love being able to be a small thing in their life, a small piece of their life. I feel like it helps me as a person, helps me as a coach. But I truly enjoy that. And then also, I love doing what I do every day because of the environment of things. I love being able to walk out and the band's playing. Every student that I see every single day in schools cheering and Coach Doss, look who it is, Coach Doss. I love it. And I love the environments of the crowd. I love the people that care in the community. It is awesome. So I believe, right now at this single moment, 10 years down the line, if I'm a college coach again, hopefully one day, maybe I may have a different outlook on things. Who knows? Which kind of goes back to what we were just talking about. But right now, being able to see the joy on the kids' faces when we're getting to win, when they're doing something, accomplishing something that they didn't think that they could do, it's pretty cool. It's really cool. And that's why I do it.
That's well said. Tell us how people can reach out to you, find out more about what you're doing, share, email, social media, website, whatever you feel comfortable with. And then after you do that, I will jump back in and wrap things up.
Yeah, so you can reach out to me. Coach Doss 20, I believe, is what my Twitter or X handle is. That's what I'm big on. I'm always on Twitter all the time. You could also reach me at colin.doss@murray.kyschools.us. Happy to answer emails through there as well, whether that's about our system, what we run. I'm sure I'm going to have some coaches on here that I'm going to have to play next year, so I'm not giving them any information. Sorry, but they won't hear back from me. No district rivals or nothing like that. I'm not going to be able to respond to those. But any outside coaches or anything like that want to reach out and just connect, I love connecting with coaches, I don't care if they're elementary school coaches or the head Dan Hurley at UConn. I don't care who it is. Like, I want to make sure I make a connection with you. So I love doing that. So anything you got, reach out. Whether it's questions, concerns, or why in the world do you do this, or you should quit coaching, whatever it is, just reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to you.
That's awesome. Colin, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time out of your schedule tonight to join us. Really appreciate it. And to everyone out there, thanks for listening, and we will catch you on our next episode. Thanks. Your first impression is everything when applying for a new coaching job. A professional coaching portfolio is the tool that highlights your coaching achievements and philosophies, and most of all, helps separate you and your abilities from the other applicants. The Coaching Portfolio Guide is an instructional membership-based website that helps you develop a personalized portfolio. Each section of the Portfolio Guide provides detailed instructions on how to organize your portfolio in a professional manner. The guide also provides sample documents for each section of your portfolio that you can copy, modify, and add to your personal portfolio. As a Hoopheads Pod listener, you can get your Coaching Portfolio Guide for just $25. Visit coachingportfolioguide.com/hoopheads to learn more.
Thanks for listening to the Hoopheads podcast, presented by Head Start Basketball.